Welcome. This is the Senior Life Academy located on the campus of the University Park United Methodist Church here in Dallas, Texas. I'm Dee Dee Cassad, and I have with me today our panel of Marion Mathis, Stephen Fleming, Bob Monroe, and Mary Jo McCurley. Welcome to you all.
Thank you.
Today we're going to talk about spiritual tools. Here we are in our fourth quarter of life, and we would like to talk about what tools we might need now that we've either cultivated or need to cultivate to enhance our spiritual life in the fourth quarter. Bob, do you have some ideas on that?
I believe a lot in intercessory prayer, where I pray for people every night in our church who have lost a loved one or may be sick, friends who are going through difficult places. And I pray for their healing and recovery. I find that a good habit for me before I go to bed. And it's something that I really haven't done until probably the last 10 or 15 years. And I find it makes me feel better of thinking and wishing well for others.
Right, that is a good point, and that is prayer is always a vital tool. It's a means of interaction not only between you and God, but the other way around, God and ourselves. How do you see it, Stephen?
Well, there's just one of the things, of course, we experience in our later years, perhaps, and hopefully, is more time to do things that we wanted to do all along. And I was just reminded because of seeing a little blurb of it on TV announcements recently, the movie Fiddler on the Roof.
Uh-huh.
And you remember how Tevye says, "If I were rich, I'd have the time that I lack to sit in the synagogue and pray.
Uh-huh.
Maybe have a seat by the eastern wall, discuss the holy books with the learned men 7 hours of the day. That would be the sweetest joy of all." And I think, you have time now to do some of those things that you just really didn't have time to do with the pace of your life
But you have to purposefully do it.
Yeah.
You have to know that that's something that will enhance your own spiritual life, right?
Well, the kind of things that adult ministries can lead you into, a program of study that you might not even know that you have an interest in until you get engaged with other people in it.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Some of the things that it makes me think about are the types of meditation that can be learned and practiced. There are lots of people of our age who have gone into Buddhist meditation, that format, and then there are lots of retreat centers and people who write about it. Thomas Keating and
Right.
Richard Rohr and all different kinds of people. And I think what's nice about being retired is that you can really experiment and try things that you may not have ever done in your life. I remember being in my 20s and hearing about the Jesus prayer that was practiced in Russian Orthodox communities for a long time, and I'd never heard of it. And then, as you know, after I retired, I've learned about some others that really are fruitful and helpful in ways that some of the rote prayers that we learned when we were children just don't speak to us anymore, or we have to have a new outlook on life for them to mean something.
Absolutely, absolutely. Mary Jo, you have recently retired. How do you see equipping yourself with spiritual tools now that you have retired? That perhaps is different than you because you didn't have the time when you were working.
There are so many, it's hard to even begin to touch all of them. Of course,
Right.
prayer and meditation.
Of course.
as a lawyer, I prayed many times a day.
Well, that is good news.
And also meditation. And part of meditation can also be breath, paying attention to your breath. And that's something that we get busy in our lives and we don't think about. But, you know, breath was mentioned 3,804 times in the Bible.
Well, good for you.
And breath, the word breath in Hebrew and Greek can also be translated as spirit. And so sitting and just, you know, recognizing your breath and slowing down can do so much for helping your spiritual life.
And you're also a life coach.
Yes.
Now, as a life coach, how do you counsel those of us who are older in enhancing our spiritual life?
Well, you know, not everyone can do the same thing. What works for one person doesn't work for another. But trying different forms of meditation is one way to start. Yoga can be a very spiritual event. You know, yoga is the yoking of your breath and movement. And so that's something people can try. But you brought up earlier that it has to be practice. But like brushing your teeth, it's got to be something you do every day.
Purposefully do.
That's right. And my husband and I prayed together every morning before we get out of bed. I mean, that's our rule. You can't get out and go to the restroom or anything until we've prayed together. And then at night, we pray again. And we do a gratitude list every evening.
Well,
Which
that was my
helps.
next thought, is how do we train ourselves, and I don't know if that's exactly the right word, to be more grateful. See, I think as we are older, we realize gratitude more than we do younger. We go through life in such a hurry as we're young, but every day is now important to us because time is a diminishing asset.
Absolutely.
So, how do you see prayer enhancing us?
Well,
And gratitude.
in gratitude, well, some people orally can say what they're grateful for that day, or some people keep a journal. These are the things I'm grateful for today. It's very important because the days that I've had what I thought was a bad day, if I sit down and think about what I'm grateful for, I realize that maybe it wasn't so bad after all.
And there's always some good things in a day, isn't there?
Absolutely.
Well, the attitude of gratitude is important, I think. I think that, and I do believe that as the older we get, the more grateful we become for each day. And I think I think that comes with age. And I think it is important for us to have an attitude of gratitude. I remember when we took prayer out of schools, and I really thought that was not a good thing. And so I thought, why don't we just have a moment of gratitude? They could be grateful. They don't need to be grateful to God. They could be grateful for their parent, grateful for their teacher, grateful for the fact they got an A. But to have something positive. But I thought that was a good idea. Nobody thought so but me. But I thought it was a good idea. It didn't fly, but that's all right. I still think it's a good idea, a good substitute for if you can't pray in school. But I think that meditation is also something we have to purposefully consider. And that takes some time. That takes some deliberate time out of a day that you program. Do you agree to that, Miriam?
Yes, I certainly do, and I think a place can be important too. If you want to have a routine or a sacred space that allows you to meditate and get away from distractions, I think that could be important for some people, just to designate a place, like, you know, in bed, this is what we're gonna pray, and then we'll get up and go about our day. But I also think that it's important to let go of preconceptions about what meditation might be, because I think it scares a lot of people. I think we're all a little bit ADD, and we think that we can't meditate because our minds race. Well, that's natural. Our
Well,
minds.
let's define meditation. Stephen, can you come up with a healthy, or any of you, talk about what meditation really is? Is it only in our head?
I think there's a structure to different kinds of meditation. I was lucky enough to have had a course of meditation taught it when I was in college, and there was a good bit of preparation for that. No indulging and mind-altering chemicals for a couple of weeks, which in college was in the late '60s was certainly a different practice for some of us that were in that class. But anyway, there was a ceremony involved, and it was transcendental meditation, and I really loved it. But then my life got busy, and I didn't set aside time to do it, and I didn't do it for 40 years, and then I picked it up again as my life was getting some control and order and routine to it,
And you were maturing.
I'm just so thankful for it, and I was thankful for a structure for meditation instead of just trying to figure it out on my own, because I think you need some kind of guidance, leadership. You might be able to get that out of a book, but I think an interaction with another person is
I
really
think that's true too.
important to learn that, and it's made a great deal of difference.
Yeah, I agree.
I try to do that 20 minutes every day, and if I don't set that aside at the first of the day, I rarely get around to doing
Yeah,
it. So
that's what I'd say. There's something that to be said for a routine and a purposeful time. How would you suggest the people that are watching us? How do you suggest that they use this in their churches? We have, from time to time, have used our chapel for meditative moments, and we let people know that that's going to be available. You started that, didn't you, Mary?
Well, with Mark, our music director, we had been to Taizé with the youth a couple of years ago, and Taizé is a monastery out in the middle of the countryside in France, and it's multi-denominational, I would say. There are the brothers from all different stripes of Christianity who live there together and who chant in more modern chant, but they also have long moments of silence, and they welcome youth from all over the world to come and experience that for days at a time. So we took our youth, and from that experience, I think the adults were just as enamored. I know we were just as enamored with it as the kids were. And in fact, I ran into one of the youngsters who went with us yesterday at church. She's back from college, and she said, "I miss it every day. I miss Taizé every day," which says a lot, because there was a lot of silence. But we wanted to have that available for people coming home from work, and it's a beautiful, quiet, refreshing 20 minutes at the end of a day. We call it Vespers because it has a couple of elements of traditional Vespers, but we sing Taizé chants, and we have scripture. So I think that's to have available for people in your church some kind of. There are a lot of other churches who have Taizé services once a month.
Well, that's a specific thing that churches that we're talking to today can do. They can have what is called Vespers from 5:30 to 6 or 6 to 6:30. People who are we could say stop in and have a time with God and let the traffic go by, and then you get home a lot easier. I would like to see that in this church, and I'd like to see it in a lot of churches. It doesn't take much preparation. It just takes some time to read scripture, to have a prayer, and then to sit in silence. A lot of people fear silence. It's a strange thing for some people to sit and be silent, but the result of it, once you get accustomed to it, is very profitable. Do you agree, Bob?
Yeah, I came about, I don't know if you call it meditation, but come in the back door. About 45 years ago when I was in grad school, there was a lot of question about biofeedback. Can your brain change things, what you do? And I found in a quiet room, and they hook you up to a meter, and just trying to let go of things, which I could change the temperature of my body.
Really?
With more practice, I could actually change my heart rate.
Mm-hmm.
What
And your blood pressure.
Well, they didn't have instruments that would instantly measure your blood pressure, but your temperature and your heart rate they did, a long time ago. But I found that exercise, just being quiet and letting your mind go and being receptive to messages from God, for example, was very, very powerful. And I had never learned anything like that in the church, but it just taught me that without stimulus, again, as people have said here, quiet, and you get in your mind in the right position, is very comforting, and I think it's very relaxing. But for me, I find it put me in a position to be more receptive to listen to God and not just talk to God.
Receptivity is a very interesting thing, and I've written something about it, about being a wide receiver.
Mm-hmm.
If we broaden our base, our intellectual base, our emotional base, our spiritual base to a wider range, more comes in.
Maybe as far as calling that some kind of spiritual tool, what you need to be is willing for people to think you're crazy. To do something adventurous like that instead of just retreading the old
same old
paths
paths.
that you've always treaded.
Well,
Like starting a Taizé
right.
moment in your worship, you may have people look at you kind of strange.
Well, we had that in the choir 2 or 3 weeks ago, did we not? Did you do it? And how do you think people responded to that? Were you there when the choir did it, Mary Jo?
I wasn't, but I've seen miraculous things happen with people that meditate.
Mm-hmm.
And there are a group of psychiatrists out of California that have done experiments with meditation with children that have ADHD. And like 90% of the children were taken off of their medication because they learned to meditate. So in this world where we're bombarded by social media and constant stimulation, I think it is so important for not just children but adults, and so that you can listen to God.
Mm-hmm.
And I always think of prayer as us talking to God, and meditation is listening.
Absolutely.
That's a good way to think
Absolutely. And the interchange between the word disciple and discipline. When we consider ourselves disciples of Jesus Christ, and that occurs just by the definition of the word. That being a disciple, we discipline ourselves in a certain form of expression to God in praise, as you mentioned earlier, and in gratitude, and I think that type of a discipline we can create regardless of our age, and we can develop and enhance. I would hope, and I encourage people to do. But do we talk about it? How often have we said, to other people what we're talking about today. We're talking as friends today, but do we sit around when we're having lunch with people or coffee with people? What's our conversation like? I doubt it is a conversation like we're having today. But why not?
Why not?
Why not?
That's true.
How is it with your soul, Dee Dee?
Well, it
we
depends on the day.
We don't ask that question,
No,
do we?
but see, and what's our hesitation as a disciple of Christ? What is our hesitation about that?
Well, I think it's to be a part of a group of people that you know you can trust
Yes.
and have an experience of some background and some shared willingness to bare your soul and be open and honest.
Mhm.
That takes a while to develop, but
And-
that's
And to feel like they will receive it.
Mhm.
You see, that's part of it. How will people be receptive to your
You have to hang out with wide receivers.
have to look for other
Or
wide
look
receivers.
for people who have the
Well,
capacity
when you think
to-
of a wide receiver, what do you think? It's a football term, of course, but when you stop and think about it, a wide receiver has to have a big hand. I mean, he's got to go out there and catch that thing with one hand mostly, and that says an awful lot to me. That our hands are open to receive something.
And I think it has a lot to do with attention. Tension being something that is extended. So your hands are extended, your focus is
Excellent.
extended, and I think a lot of us have trouble focusing on other people and being attentive to the moment where somebody might be willing to open up and talk. Sometimes I think we don't pay enough attention, honestly.
On that note, we probably need to wind this up. We want to thank those who have listened to us today. If there's any comments or questions you would like to ask us, please feel free to contact us. Our website's on the bottom of the screen. But in the meantime, may God surround you with His grace.